YouTube. So today we're going to get into kind of a new topic. I mean, this is not going to be dealing with politics or anything like that. Um, this is going to be an interesting one around Christianity as it relates to polygamy, or more specifically, polygyny. So I'll let this fine individual, Rob, Rob here, go into the differences and whatnot. But the reason we're going to do this, well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, this actually seems to be somewhat of a thing on, at least on YouTube, with more and more individuals popping up like this. And I'm gonna guess why that is, and I think a lot of this relates to the attack on the traditional Christian family. So a few years ago, my wife and I have one wife, as commanded by the Bible and has been dictated via thousands of years of church tradition and doctrine and things like that, neither here nor there. But my family and I used to attend a Methodist church a few years ago. And for those of you who don't know, the Methodist church has recently gone through a bit of a change. It's basically split. And the reason it's split is because the traditional Christian marriage, the traditional Christian relationship was attacked from a different angle, and it was attacked via homosexuality. And a surprising amount of people who called themselves Christians, who affiliated with Christianity and regularly attended church, was okay with it, and they argued for it. And one of the things that I brought up to them was that this is a very, very bad thing to argue for. If you're going to argue against a traditional Christian marriage from the standpoint of same-sex marriage and homosexuality, you are opening a can of worms in Pandora's box for a lot of other issues that you're not thinking about. And not only that, you're arguing from the weaker position of something like polygamy. There is a much better argument against homosexuality from a purely biblical standpoint than there is for something like polygamy. Don't hear what I'm not saying, though. That's what I said to the Methodists. They thought I was crazy, and now here we are with Polygamy Rob Kowalski. That's how you pronounce his name. And people like this propping up and coming at traditional Christian marriage from a different angle. So again, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying polygamy is biblical. I'm not saying polygamy is moral and it is something you should do. I'm just saying, when you start attacking foundational doctrines and values of a belief system, you are opening up a can of worms where, if you're attacking one angle, you have to think about the logical consequences of all angles. So any Christian that promotes something like same-sex marriage and you call yourself a Christian, you have little to no argument against people like this. However, this is the results of attacking a foundational principle like traditional marriage. Again, that is not to say that this is something that should be promoted. This is something that we should do. I'm going to argue against this individual today just to demonstrate how bad these arguments are. And I've seen a lot of response videos to this video. Mike Winger responded to this video. I've seen other pastors who have responded to this video. And their angle was basically, let me go through the Bible. Let me give you Bible verses and things like that. And my angle is not going to be the Bible. Let me rephrase that. Most of my argument against Christian, quote unquote, polygamy is not going to be a biblical argument, because people like this don't care about the Bible. They're very inconsistent and illogical with how they interpret the Bible, what they're interpreting, Bible verses they choose to look at, Bible verses they choose to ignore, the application of those Bible verses. And I'll demonstrate it. But he's really not even making a biblical argument for these 5 reasons. So I'm not going to come at him from a biblical perspective, really. Again, I may get into, he brings up King Solomon and some other things. So I'll briefly go into some things like that, which King Solomon is a terrible person to reference if you're a polygamist, in my opinion. But I'm going to go at this just from a straight logical standpoint, just from a straight pure philosophical standpoint, because this is very just low IQ crap. This is just complete and utter nonsense. And I'll even say that this individual here comes off as someone just trying to justify his degeneracy. Just being able to sleep with as many women as possible and being able to justify it. I mean, if you look at this guy's channel, Rob's channel, Bro Rob, with his wife beater and, manicured hair and his tats and whatnot. I mean, if you go to his channel, look up his videos, this dude comes off as obsessed, alleged kind of pervy dude. I mean, look at these. I mean, literally, these are his videos. 10 reasons not to have sex before marriage. 6 years abstinence. Interview with Love Guru. If you're single, waiting, and feeling lonely, watch this. Is it a sin to use sex toys? How to tell if a guy really likes you. 6 tips for waiting to have sex. Why waiting to have sex works. Is oral and anal sex a sin in marriage? What if I wait and the sex isn't good? How to wait when you really want to have sex. The Antichrist and end times. I mean, literally, for every 12, double-digit videos about sex, you'll occasionally get one video about a generic Christian topic. I mean, this dude screams just sex-obsessed weirdo who can't control his natural desires, which we'll get into that because that's some of his arguments. But again, the reason I'm not coming at this from a biblical perspective is because if you look at these 5 reasons, the first reason is scarcity of virtuous women. It's not really a biblical point, nor does he really use any Bible verses here. His next one is supporting and protecting women. It's not really using any Bible verses or anything like that. Embrace your natural desires. I would argue that's antithetical to tons of Christian teachings and doctrines. Expansion of the family. I mean, not really, don't really use a lot of Bible verses in these. FOMO. Literally, his last reason is FOMO. Fear of missing out. None of this is really all that biblical. I would even argue some of this is very antithetical to biblical theology and biblical topics. So I'm not going to come at this from a purely biblical perspective. I'm not even going to focus on the Bible. I'm just going to demonstrate how dumb a lot of this stuff is. This video is not very long. It's around 8 minutes, and we will go ahead and get started.
It's your boy, Rob Kowalski, quickly becoming known as the Christian Polygamy Guy, back with another video, and this video is entitled 5 Reasons Why Christian Men Should Pursue Polygamy.
I mean, even getting into the whole, his obsession with sex.
Christian men.
Look at the background here. I mean, this background, the truth about sex. I mean, this dude is obsessed. He's obsessed. But, sorry, we'll go ahead. I'll let it go.
And should pursue polygamy. Yep, this is going to be a doozy, so stay with me. All right, before we get into it, I need to tell you that I am a committed Christian. I am a Jesus follower. My life is completely surrendered to him, and I would not do anything that I didn't believe that God was okay with.
Debatable, but you don't really care about that, so we'll continue.
All my fellow Christians out there, let me just tell you this. The Bible has no ban on polygyny.
The Bible has no ban on polygyny. I'll let him define what polygyny is really quick. But I will point out, you know what? I'll just kind of go ahead and get into this. The Bible doesn't have a ban on many things. Literally, the Bible was never intended to be this exhaustive list of do's and don'ts, oughts and ought not tos. I mean, this is a very, I'll put it to you this way. A lot of arguments that this individual makes for polygamy, more specifically polygyny, are the same or very similar arguments to what a lot of people made from a Christian perspective as it related to slavery and racism. There is no ban on slavery or racism, hating another race of people. Show me one Bible verse where God says, "Thou shalt not have slaves." It is illegal for you to have slaves. It is a sin for you to own slaves and hate another race of people. Not only that, I'll take it a step further. I will show you plenty of Bible verses, or I could show you plenty of Bible verses, where in the Old Testament, what this individual references a lot, as it relates to polygamy, more specifically polygyny, where people had multiple wives, where the Bible forbid those individuals to intermarry with foreigners. Rob, I hope your wives aren't foreign to your ethnic nation. She looks foreign. She looks foreign. She looks foreign. Don't know. Yeah, I hope you're not mixing, because if you're going to get really specific with the Bible and what's laud and what's outlawed, yeah, the Israelites were not allowed to intermarry. And you're going to bring up Solomon. He's going to bring up Solomon as an example in a little bit. Part of his downfall was intermarrying with people outside of his ethnicity, with foreign women. But I know you don't care about that. That's why I'm not really using Bible verses. He doesn't care about that. But I mean, if we're being that specific and that nitpicky,
I'm going to be using the term polygyny and not polygamy because polygyny is the technical term for a man having multiple wives. But seriously, take a moment to think about that. The Bible explicitly forbids all kinds of things and has punishments for each infraction, but polygyny ain't one of them.
There's a ton of things that the Bible doesn't. In the New Testament, there's no direct command against child sacrifice. Does that therefore mean we as Christians, which Christianity was established at the time of Christ, does that therefore mean abortion is good? No. There's no direct command again. I'll go back to slavery and racism. Does that therefore mean racism is good? No. Does that mean slavery is a good thing? Something that we ought to do? No. I mean, it's very similar arguments to what the homosexuals made in the Methodist Church when I would debate them around, well, Christ never directly himself condemned homosexuality. Irrelevant. Christ defined what the traditional marriage was, and you were trying to redefine that. This individual is trying to redefine that. These people think like children. Because the Bible doesn't explicitly say the exact very thing that I'm trying to promote, therefore you cannot logically conclude that it is good or bad. I mean, it's just how a child thinks. There are plenty of things that the Bible doesn't say thou shalt not use heroin. Does that mean being a heroin addict is good? No. I mean, the logical consequences of hermeneutics and the totality of Scripture. Clearly, that's something you should not do. I mean, it's just stupid arguments.
No punishments, no condemnation, not even a negative word about it.
That's just completely false. But again, he doesn't care about Bible verses. I mean, he doesn't care about any of the verses in Ephesians or Deuteronomy where it says kings shall not multiply their wives. I mean, this is just blatantly false. He says other blatantly false stuff too. But we'll continue.
So let's put to rest this idea that it was some Old Testament thing that God just allowed because of war or wanting to populate the earth thing. The whole house of Israel, our spiritual ancestors, came from a man with 4 wives. And let's also be real with ourselves. The divorce rate, even amongst Christians, is sky high, up to 50%.
Just blatantly false. The divorce rate, even among Christians, is sky high, up to 50%. Here you go. Divorce rates among church-going Christians. Literally, this is just an easy thing to Google. According to some studies, the divorce rate for Christians who attend church regularly is lower than the rate for those who don't attend church. Let's see. So, according to, I'll just read this first part. According to Focus on the Family, 38% of people who regularly attend church have been divorced compared to 60% of those who identify as Christian. This is very high. Let me scroll down here. A Harvard University study, a 14-year study by Harvard University's Human Flourishing Program, found that regular religious service attendance is associated with a 50% lower risk of divorce later in life. Wowzas. Here's another Google. Recent findings have revealed a startling statistic: almost 25% of marriages within the Christian faith end in divorce. People who regularly attend church and who actually live a Christian lifestyle, the divorce rate is very, very low among those people. It's not 50%. There are studies that show it's not even close to 50%. It's actually half that. This is just incorrect. Compared to the general population, the general degenerate, godless, secular population of America that has rampant sexual promiscuity, which he's arguing for, in my opinion, when it comes to polygyny and polygamy, it's over 50%. Actual Christianity, no, not even close to 50%.
So don't tell me that monogamy is some magic fix. It's time to rethink our approach. Our current setup is far from perfect. For more on this, go check out episode 88 of the Kowalski Analysis podcast entitled Investigating Polygamy, A Biblical Perspective. Before we start, make sure that you're following me on Instagram. My username is @Rob Kowalski. I post daily motivation and updates on what's going on with my life.
This dude just seems narcissistic and obsessed with himself. Look at my opinion on this. Look at my opinion on that. Let me show you updates on my life. Why do I care about that? There's red flags all over the place. But, I digress.
Now let's get started. Reason number one, scarcity of virtuous women. The wisest man who ever lived, King Solomon, he said this in Proverbs 31:10. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. Now, why would he say that?
King Solomon is a terrible example to give here, Rob. The reason King Solomon is a terrible example is because his entire downfall and the reason he fell out of favor with God was precisely because he had so many wives, particularly foreign wives. When he was directly commanded, kings should not multiply their wives in Deuteronomy. Literally, his downfall could easily be argued was because he not only practiced polygyny, he intermarried with foreigners. You're literally quoting an individual who is a great example for why you shouldn't have many wives. But he doesn't care about that. He clearly doesn't care about it because he's quoting Solomon as an example for his entire point. But yeah, just the context of what he's saying. Who can find a virtuous woman for a price as far above rubies? Because it's hard to find virtuous women, the conclusion is we should therefore marry up any virtuous woman we can find and therefore have a few men with a monopoly on the market of women. Which, yeah, that's not going to cause all types of societal problems for every other man and birth rates and things like that. The conclusion to what you're saying is not therefore you should have a few men marry up all the women. Why is that conclusion any better than saying maybe we should promote a culture and society that promotes Christian-based virtuous women as opposed to just marrying up any virtuous woman you see?
Because virtuous women are scarce. Think about it. Finding a virtuous woman in today's society is like finding a needle in a haystack. It's like finding a diamond in a sea of cubic zirconias. Seriously, have you seen what's out there lately? So hold up, Pastor. You're telling me I get one chance at this. I get one golden ticket, and I'm going to give it away to a woman that's been dating around and possibly sleeping with several men before me, and then I got to come along and pony up?
Just multiple things. You only get one chance in life. You don't get multiple chances at life, or unless you're a Buddhist and you think you get reincarnated. You only get one chance at life from a Christian perspective. You get one golden ticket, and if you don't do a good job at it and you don't have faith and all that, that's it. How is that any different than marriage? Why would marriage not be a metaphor for your one life? Your one marriage is a reflection of your one wife, your one spouse. What a terrible argument and debate. you're also making the assumption that every woman out there sleeps around and isn't virtuous and is just sexually promiscuous and has a past and all that. And again, your conclusion is you're not even addressing the problem. If the problem is sexual promiscuity, why would you not promote a society that discourages sexual promiscuity and encourages a Christian society? That would solve your problem. Not, hey, let's just have a monopoly on all the women who are virtuous. Therefore, screwing a ton of men out of the potential of leading a woman to Christ, the potential of leading a woman to a better life under Christ, or anything like that. I mean, it's just so. This is how a child thinks.
That doesn't sound realistic. That's not even fair. So listen up, man. Answer this question honestly. Would you marry a woman with a past if she was one of 3 of your wives and not your one and only? I think the answer is an obvious yes. Polygyny offers a realistic way to clean up the dating cesspool that we find ourselves in.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Polygamy is very rare. Most women do not approve of polygamy. I mean, you can look at polygamy statistics. Prevalence of polygamy. The percentage of women in polygamous unions has declined slightly over time, from 14% in 2000 to 11% in 2016. Psychological impact. A review of studies found that women in polygamous marriages are almost 2.5 times more likely to experience depression than women in monogamous marriages. I mean, where is it? There's statistics that are like polygamy worldwide is only like 2% of people in the world are in polygamous relationships. Now that's changing the acceptance of it is changing in the United States, but the act of people being in polygamous relationships, the majority of women are against this. And again, his prescription to the problem of sexual promiscuity and cleaning up sexual immorality is not to address sexual immorality. It's to marry up all the women. I mean, how does that fix anything?
Reason number 2, supporting and protecting women. Right now, there's a major imbalance in the numbers game when it comes to marriageable women to men. Just in the United States church alone, there are 20 million more women than there are men. That's a whole lot of ladies who need a covering, and they need someone to look out for them. But what?
So again, his whole problem is, that there's statistical variance and imbalance in women and godly women who go to church versus godly men who go to church. So therefore, the godly men should marry up all the godly women. We shouldn't promote more godly men. Yeah, we should redefine traditional marriage as opposed to actually addressing the problem of having more masculine godly men. Again, you're not even addressing the actual problem. You're trying to fix a symptom of what you perceive as a problem. It's so this is so dumb. This is just stupid. This is stupid.
What do? We put them in an impossible situation. We tell them, we'll pray for you, but then we basically assign them to a life of fornication.
Notice what he said right there. We put them in an impossible situation saying, we'll pray for you. Prayer doesn't work. Having an active spiritual life around prayer to God, are you saying that doesn't work? It's more realistic to have a woman marry a guy with a million other wives, but not pray. So the solution isn't prayer. And you're making an assumption there is an impossible situation. There's not an impossible situation at all. This is not an impossible situation. You can find good men and good godly women. They exist. They're out there. And the prescription, the solution to the problem is not having Christianity react to the culture and redefine traditional doctrinal stances. The solution is to address the problem. Have Christianity influence the culture as opposed to the culture influence Christianity. I mean, prayer doesn't work. I mean, How unchristian of you, Rob.
Vacation, marrying a pagan, or spending a lifetime alone and becoming the cat lady in the process. Not ideal. When you think about it, one of the first commandments God gave us was to be fruitful and multiply. Later, he commands us not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. So which of these two commands do you suggest that women break to uphold some tradition in monogamy?
So are you saying if a woman who can't have children and can't multiply is breaking a command? Are you saying a nun who isn't multiplying is sinning? No, that's illogical. We're told we're told all types of things that are not necessarily sinful. A woman who doesn't multiply is not the same as a woman who is sexually immoral. One is sinful, one isn't. It's not the same thing.
That ain't even in the Bible. Polygyny can fix that gender gap and start to balance out some of those numbers. Plus, it's just plain smart. Not only financially, but then women can share housework and child rearing, and it just makes life easier for everyone involved.
Statistically, no, he's completely wrong. It increases depression. I mean, this guy also brags, I'm pretty sure, about having 100 babies a year. This dude fathers tons of children, allegedly, according to him. How is this easier for everyone when you can't devote a significant amount of your time because you have 50 wives? You have 100 children with 30 different women. How are you going to father? How are you going to spend adequate time to be a father? Because it's a huge investment as a father who has had a good bit of children with my one wife. You can't, if you have that many children, Rob, name them. Do you even know all their names off the top of your head? How can you as a father be a good father to that many children? How can you devote enough time to dedicate to each one of your wives to demonstrate to them that you were devoted to them? It makes things infinitely more complicated, especially from a child perspective. I mean, children, does my dad even know my name? I mean, you got tons of kids. You probably don't even know half their names.
Involved. Reason number 3, embrace your natural desires. Check it, fam.
One of the most unbiblical, I mean, literally, this is the argument from homosexuals. Embracing natural desires. I was born this way. I was born this way, therefore, be who you are. Love is love. Literally, you are in this argument right here, you are making the same argument as the same-sex marriage people. This is a terrible argument. Yeah, forget all the Bible verses around deny thyself, pick up your cross, follow me. It is better for you to cut out if your eye sins, it's better for you to cut out your eye than to live in a sinful manner. If your right hand makes you sin, it's better for you to be left-handed. I mean, literally, how many Bible verses are like, the natural desires of men are sin, fallen. The heart of man is dark and cold. If anything, if Christianity teaches you anything, it is that the natural proclivities of man are towards degeneracy, chaos, nonsense, sinful nature. It's why we had to have a savior. We couldn't save ourselves. That's why Jesus Christ was divine. I mean, literally, we couldn't do it. God had to do it. Embrace your natural desires. I, as a monogamous human being, heterosexual monogamous human being, women I'm not married to, they're still unattractive to me. They don't look good. There's some magical biological switch flipped on you, Rob, and me as married individuals that women we're not married to, they don't look good to us anymore. It's not natural for us to be attracted to even women we're not married to. You're making a terrible argument. You do not act upon it. You do not act upon your natural desires. You live in accordance with God and his commands, like you just said.
Polygyny ain't about ignoring our natural desires. It's about recognizing and respecting them. Attraction and companionship are part of who we are as humans.
Respect, pride, and respect. Respect your natural desires. Yeah, don't preach against sexual immorality and living in a virtuous, godly Christian way. Respect your natural desires. Do you know how satanic that is? This is satanic, literally.
Have you ever wondered why a woman's biological clock stops at 35 to 40 years of age when she hits menopause, but men can make babies until we're basically fossils? God set that whole system up, and it begs.
Are you now arguing for pedophilia? Does the Bible give a direct command against age? Age is much more subjective than sex. What type of argument are you trying to make here, Rob? Oh, be natural. Oh, just because men can reproduce into their 90s means a 90-year-old should have relations with a 30-year-old. What? I mean, literally, you're coming to your own soul. This is just solipsism. You're the master of your own universe. You're you're the one who comes to your own conclusions based on things that don't make sense to you. It's ridiculous.
Here's the question, why would God do that? Let's face it, older men are never going to stop being attracted to younger women, and younger women are never going to stop being attracted to older men. It's biology, plain and simple. By embracing polygyny, Christian men can stay true to their natural inclinations and stay true to their faith-based values. Have you noticed how many young men today are converting to Islam? It's partially because they see polygyny as a way to fulfill their desires, flex some social status, and feel good about themselves without being told they're pieces of shit for doing it.
Yeah, notice how he's not substantiating any of this stuff. He makes a ton of claims in this video. He substantiates none of it. He doesn't use statistics. It's just, the reason X, Y, and Z exists is because, obviously because polygyny is the way to go, or it reaffirms my viewpoint. Just, cognitive dissonance and, reaffirming everything that I believe. The reason why people convert to Islam, the reason why a lot of Protestants are converting to Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, it's because of the structure and the teachings within Islam. It's because of there's a ton of reasons why people convert to Islam that literally have nothing to do with the marriage teachings. I mean, Islam originally spread mostly due to conquering. That's why a lot of people converted to Islam. You convert in their societies, or you'll be terminated, or you'll be ostracized. I mean, now a lot of the reasons why people, Westerners are converting to Islam is because there are certain levels of masculinity as it relates to the structures, rule following, and what they perceive as virtues around the religious teachings and the community feel of it as it relates to the religion that have nothing to do with the fact that you can have a million wives. I mean, for example, a lot of minority men, particularly in the black community, the reason they convert to Islam is because of perceived racism within Christianity. I mean, pull up studies and articles on this. Has nothing to do with polygyny. I'm not saying that's not a reason. I'm not saying that's not part of the reason. I am saying to say that this is a main reason, or this is the major reason, or something like that, and not just some ancillary benefit is completely, this is very manipulative. Very manipulative. And he's not substantiating any of this. He's just saying this is his opinion. I mean, show me statistics. You're not substantiating anything.
Doing it. But it's not just about the fellas. Polygyny also embraces the natural desires of women too. Follow me. See, women are hypergamous. They want to date up and they want to marry up. But with more women getting educated and earning like never before in history, it creates slim pickings out there for the women.
Oh, let's not go into the Old Testament about women in the workforce and women being able to vote and all this other kind of stuff. And the fact that we're in a patriarchal society, and in the Old Testament, women certainly could not do things back then that they can do today. And the fact that women are hypergamous, we shouldn't address hypergamy as a problem. And the fact that women can be manipulative and marry up, not for good reasons, but for very materialistic reasons, gold digging or, manipulation or social status. Yeah, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the fact that because they act that way and that's natural to them, whether or not that's an immoral or moral thing, let's not discuss that. Let's let's promote the fact that a small group of high status men, whether they're rich or powerful, in a polygamous society will end up with all the women because women are hypergamous. This would set up a horrible situation for a society, which is why in Western civilization the standard is monogamy. Show me, Rob, demonstrate to me, Rob, one civilization that exists today that has polygamy or polygyny as the standard versus polygamy or versus monogamy. The standard of the greatest civilization that has ever existed, Western civilization, is monogamy. There's a reason for that. There is a reason for that.
It's like a game of musical chairs, and it creates a buyer's market for the men. Ironically, biblical polygyny would actually increase a woman's value because there would be more brides and less single women on the market. And
the other thing that I'll say to Rob, or any polygamist or polygynist, or however you want to say it, the other thing that they always argue from a point of silence. The Bible does not directly and exactly spoon feed me a condemnation of this, and you can't logically come to that conclusion based on hermeneutics and a million other Bible verses that clearly define what a traditional marriage is. So therefore, what I think is completely and utterly okay. Just like slavery and racism, there is no command for you to be polygamous. You have to do mental gymnastics on the verses in Ephesians around one flesh and all that to justify what you're saying. Show me, Rob, where God commands you to have multiple wives. If your entire argument is a stance from there's no condemnation, show me where you're commanded to do that. Because you're coming to a logical conclusion based on where you're supposed to be fruitful and multiply. There's examples of polygamy in the Old Testament and things like that. Okay, show me a command where you're commanded to have multiple wives by God. Thou shalt have multiple wives. Show me where God says it's okay for men to be polygamous. Show me that. Show me an exact quotation in the Bible where God commands you to be where you should be polygamous. There isn't one. Your entire point from silence, the silence of no condemnation, is moot, because I can make the exact argument in the opposite direction that completely makes your point moot.
Incentivizing men to marry younger before all the good ones get taken. Right now, outside of wanting to be obedient to God, there's almost no incentive for men to get married.
There's tons of incentives for men to get married. That doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean that there hasn't been massive amounts of cultural manipulation around feminism and the feminization of men, not just the women's power and all this kind of stuff. I, as a millennial, am in a monogamous relationship with a larger than average family. There are tons of reasons for men to get married, to be a father, to be a good husband, to be a good example to other men in the culture when we need it now more than ever from a traditional family standpoint. Is it a wonder, Rob, that not only is the traditional family being attacked by Hollywood, being attacked by what used to be perceived as religious institutions and the media and governments around the world and all this kind of stuff, now it's being attacked by people like you. That's because the traditional Christian family is one of the core units of what makes a culture and civilization great. Particularly Western civilization, where the standard has been established as monogamy. You have no argument against that.
Polygyny changes that. In addition, it lets women marry the top tier men instead of settling for the scraps. Many
settling for the scraps. So we don't want to help those men. We don't want to help those men. We just want to benefit bros like you who wear white beaters, have tattoos, probably spend like 30 minutes a day on grooming your hair and your face. I mean, yeah, let's let dudes like you have all the women. Some 50-year-old, mid 40s or 50-year-old broheme. have all the women and just leave the average guy out to dry. That doesn't sound Christian. That sounds very detrimental to a society. I mean, not everybody can rock a wife beater and tats, bro. You know?
Many women would rather share a good, godly alpha man than have a beta man all to themselves. And when you look at the fact that 80% of the single women right now are sleeping with the top 20% of the men, that proves to you.
Yeah, so let's attack sexual promiscuity and sexual immorality, not promote polygyny. Oh, there's sexual immorality out there. The solution is therefore polygyny. No. Why is your solution better than mine, where we should discourage sexual promiscuity via monogamy, especially when divorce rates are so much lower, and it's better for a society. And we have Western civilization where it's had monogamy as the standard that demonstrates that's the best type of society from a marriage standpoint, from a historical standpoint. Debate it.
That what I just said is true. Reason number 4, expansion of the family and community. Remember that be fruitful and multiply command? God meant that, and it was one of his first commandments. Now, a woman can give birth once a year, but a man can literally make hundreds of babies a year under polygyny if he wants.
Describe to me how having 100 babies a year, after 3 years, you have 300 babies. Demonstrate to me how you're going to have enough time throughout 300 babies' lifetime, 300 children's lifetime, to not only know their names, but to dedicate time to develop children from a loving perspective, from a disciplinary perspective, from an encouragement perspective, from an example perspective. You have hundreds of babies a year. You're not even going to know the majority of those children intimately. And you think that's a better way to be a father? That's a terrible way to be a father. Terrible way. So what you're going to end up with, you're going to have some hood, type situation where there's really not a father in a lot of these kids' lives. So they're going to be raised by the mother, and then you're going to have a whole generation. You're going to have generations of men who act like women, who wear earrings and can't control their emotions. And yeah, the best thing for a child in general is to have a loving mother and father, and to have a father in the life of a child, and to dedicate time to that. Being fruitful and multiply does not therefore mean have 15 million wives. It means have children. Birth rates are low because people in general are not having children. They don't see the benefits of having children. So you should encourage married couples to have children. There are tons of monogamous people who don't have children. That's the problem. Because, too many, we're overpopulated, and climate change, and there's too many children, and pollution, and blah, blah, blah. That's what you attack. It is not, therefore, the solution is have 1 million wives. So you can have 1,000 babies that you're not even going to know 90% of them, and then they're going to be raised by women. You're literally promoting part of the reason why we have a crap society today.
On the spree. Again, God gave man that ability. Why would God do that? Plus, polygyny ensures kids inherit quality genes because more women are mating with the alphas. The Bible says children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed are those who fill their quiver with them.
Yeah, so let's have 1,000 of them not even know half their names. They're a blessing and gift from God, but I'm gonna have 1 million of them and not even which one are you? Oh, you're number 97. Are you 97 from polygamous relationship A or polygamous relationship B? I mean, and then how are you going to be a good grandparent? I mean, good Lord, man. You're literally just justifying your degeneracy is all you're doing.
So the Bible teaches that having a lot of kids is a good thing. And the biological family is the number one tool to produce and raise disciples to take over the world and populate heaven.
Yes, and Christ gives you the biological family and the standard definition of one man and one woman. I mean, which you don't care about. I mean, the one flesh. One flesh, could be, marriage A and marriage B and marriage C and marriage D. One flesh just means this one man and this one woman. But this one man and this other one woman being married is another one flesh. No, it isn't, Rob. A man can't be one flesh with 15 different women. The denominator, it's not how math works, buddy. The denominator would have to be, it would have to be a derivative. I don't think like that. I just wear my wife beaters and get tattoos.
But the devil has blinded us into thinking that a man can't take more than one wife. And let me tell you, that lie leads to all kinds of problems. Wives become...
Yeah, all kinds of problems like Western civilization. Like a historical Christian stance of like 2,000 year history.
hard-hearted, rebellious, disrespectful, and the...
Really? That doesn't happen in polygamous relationships? I've actually shown you statistics. I'll do it again. Psychological impact. A review of studies found that women in polygamous marriages are almost 2.5 times more likely to experience depression than women in monogamous marriages. Oh, depression and hard-heartedness definitely isn't going to happen when a woman has to compete with like 10 other women for the attention of a man. And when a woman has multiple children with one man compared to like 10 other women who have multiple children with that one man, when is he going to have time for yeah, that's not going to create any problems.
The men, if they don't end up cheating and ruining everything, they stay in the relationship and their kids grow up seeing them weak and powerless, and then the cycle continues throughout the generations. It's a vicious cycle, but polygyny, it breaks that power dynamic and it allows parents to raise good, godly children. You see, patriarchy without polygyny, it is possible. But polygyny without patriarchy, now that's impossible. So polygyny is about expanding your family, but it's also about building strong communities and raising generations of warriors for God. Reason number 5, FOMO.
I mean, this is such a biblical Christian argument. FOMO. This is literally, I'm not even going to address this because this is just so stupid. I mean, this is like debating a 16-year-old middle schooler who never grew up and like touched a boob and got really excited about it. Now all he wants to do is touch boobs, and he's been doing that for like 50 years and he just wants to justify it, allegedly. FOMO. Yeah, FOMO is literally the underpinnings of our entire degenerate culture right now. FOMO, fear of missing out, keeping up with the Joneses, materialism. You know, YOLO, FOMO, YOLO. You only live once. FOMO, fear of missing out. Oh, I don't want to be left out. I don't want to be left out in the dust. Therefore, I got to have tons of wives and tons of partners, and I got to go out and get drunk and do this and do that. Literally, if you're a Christian and you have to be, and you, I mean, there's no reason to even address FOMO. Worry and fear from a Christian perspective is clearly not good. Fear of the Lord, not fear of missing out. Reverent fear of God. Do not worry about tomorrow because you cannot add another minute to your life. I mean, all the types of stuff that Paul writes about. He doesn't care about this, but literally his 5th reason is FOMO. I mean, dude, I'm convinced now. I'm convinced. This, you have convinced me from a intellectual standpoint, Rob. You know, you're my bro. You have convinced me, bro, based on FOMO. Yeah, polygyny. This is ridiculous. You know, but I thought this would be a little fun to address this kind of stuff. I mean, this is what happens when you go after traditional Christian marriage. You end up in places like Bro Rob and his wife beater debating why sexual degeneracy is good because of FOMO. Oh God, this is fantastic. This is just, oh, I love the internet sometimes because you just get to see some interesting people and interesting things. But that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you on the next one.